For decades, Russia's military might was defined by iconic Cold War machines. The T-72 tank, the Mi-24 Hind helicopter. These were the steel giants that NATO planners lost sleep over, the weapons that defined an era of superpower rivalry. But today, in 2026, the battlefields of Ukraine have rewritten the rulebook. Russia's most powerful military assets aren't what you'd expect. Some of those legendary platforms have become death traps, others never lived up to their hype, and the real game changers. They cost less than a used car and weigh less than a laptop. This is the story of how Russia's military evolved, or failed to evolve, and why the future of warfare belongs to the cheap, the small, and the expendable. Let's start with the T-72. For 40 years, this tank was the backbone of Soviet and Russian armored forces. Over 25,000 were built between 1973 and 1992. It was designed to be simple, cheap to produce, and deadly. A tank that could be mass-produced to overwhelm NATO forces through sheer numbers. The T-72's most distinctive feature, and its fatal flaw, was its autoloader carousel beneath the turret. This stored ammunition in a ring directly under the crew compartment. The benefit? Only 3 crew members instead of 4, making the tank smaller and harder to hit. The problem? One penetrating hit to the hull, and the entire ammunition supply detonates. This ammunition storage vulnerability became evident in modern combat. The distinctive design weakness, where a penetrating hit could cause severe structural damage to the vehicle, led to the addition of protective measures. The internet called these protective measures cope cages. By the end of 2025, Russia had lost over 11,000 tanks in Ukraine. That's more than the entire active tank force of any NATO country. The T-72B3, Russia's modernized variant with thermal imaging and improved armor, proved especially vulnerable to angle-down weapons like the NLAW, Javelin, and increasingly cheap FPV drones. But here's the kicker. It wasn't the tank's design that was necessarily obsolete. It was the tactics. Russia sent columns of unsupported armor into kill zones without infantry screening, without air cover, without proper reconnaissance. They drove into mud, they hit mines, they parked in Ukrainian artillery range. The biggest lesson, even an obsolete T-72 can be effective with proper tactics, but throw it into combat like it's 1945, and it becomes a fireball. So Russia tried to build a revolutionary replacement, the T-14 Armata. Unveiled in 2015 with incredible fanfare, it featured an unmanned turret with the crew in an armored capsule, active protection systems, advanced networking. On paper, it was decades ahead. Russia planned to field 2,300 by 2020. By 2026, they have maybe 40 to 100 operational, and commanders are terrified to risk them in combat at $8 to $12 million per unit, compared to 1.5 to 2.5 million for an upgraded T-90. They're simply too expensive and too unreliable. Production couldn't keep up. Technical problems plagued testing. Sanctions choked off foreign components. Russian units suffered unsustainable personnel attrition in obsolete T-62s. Platforms dating back to 1961, reactivated from deep storage. Next, the Mi-24 Hind. NATO called it the Hind. Soviet pilots called it the flying tank, first deployed in 1972. This was a gunship that could also carry 8 troops, a unique Soviet concept of combining transport and firepower. In Afghanistan, it was legendary. Its heavy armor could take multiple hits from small arms. Its rocket pods and anti-tank missiles devastated guerrilla positions. At one point, Western intelligence considered it one of the most dangerous helicopter platforms in the world. But 50 years later, the battlefield has changed. Modern sensors, manpads, and especially drones have made low-altitude attack helicopters extremely vulnerable. Both Russia and Ukraine are using Mi-24s not for ground attack, but as drone hunters, flying at altitude to shoot down reconnaissance drones with cannons and even air-to-air missiles. In December 2025, a Ukrainian Mi-24 was potentially shot down by a Russian Gerun-2 drone equipped with an R-60 air-to-air missile. Think about that. A $50,000 suicide drone destroyed a multi-million-dollar attack helicopter. That's the new reality. If the T-14 is a propaganda showpiece, the T-90M is Russia's real main battle tank. It's not revolutionary. It's an evolution of Soviet-era design. But it works, it's being produced, and it's what Russian commanders actually use. Russia built 250 to 300 T-90Ms annually between 2022 and 2025, reaching roughly 600 total. It features modern thermal optics, explosive reactive armor, and the Arena active protection system. At combat ranges with proper tactics, it's still a dangerous opponent. The lesson here, sometimes boring, proven technology beats revolutionary vaporware. Russia's Su-57 Felon was supposed to be their F-22 competitor. A fifth-generation stealth fighter with supercruise, advanced sensors, and the ability to control loyal wingman drones. Development began in the early 2000s. First flight in 2010. By 2026, Russia has maybe 25 to 44 operational. Compare that to over 200 F-22s and over 1,000 F-35s. Why so few? Each costs over $3.7 million just for components. Sanctions block crucial electronics. Production runs at 6 to 12 per year. And its radar cross-section, despite being called stealth, is significantly larger than American equivalents. The Su-57 has been used sparingly in Ukraine, mostly firing long-range missiles from Russian airspace. It's capable, but Russia can't afford to risk them, and they can't build enough to matter. Here's where Russia still excels: ballistic missile submarines. The Borei and Borei A-class represents genuine cutting-edge technology. 8 are operational as of 2026, with more planned. Each carries 16 Bulava missiles, each missile with 6 nuclear warheads. That's up to 96 city-destroying weapons per submarine. The Borei A variant uses pump-jet propulsion, claimed to be twice as quiet as Virginia-class subs. These submarines can break through Arctic ice to launch. They represent Russia's guaranteed second strike capability. Even if every Russian land-based missile was destroyed, these submarines ensure a catastrophic final blow. This is Russia's true strategic power. Not tanks or planes, but the absolute promise of a catastrophic final strike. Russia has also invested heavily in hypersonic weapons, missiles that travel at Mach 5 or faster. The Kh-47M2 Kinzhal is an air-launched ballistic missile reaching Mach 10 to 12. Despite the hype, it's essentially a modified Iskander launched from MiG-31Ks. Ukraine shot one down with a Patriot missile in May 2023, proving it's not unstoppable. Still, Russia ordered 144 more in 2025 at $10 million each. The 3 M22 Zircon is more impressive, a sea-launched scramjet-powered cruise missile hitting Mach 8 to 9 with over 1,000-kilometer range. First used in combat in Ukraine in 2024, it's one of the few operational hypersonic cruise missiles worldwide. The avant-garde hypersonic glide vehicle is the crown jewel, mounted on ICBMs. It reaches Mach 27 and can maneuver during descent. That is 9 kilometers or 5.5 miles per second. To put that in perspective, at Mach 27, you could fly from New York to London in about 10 minutes, or circle the entire Earth in roughly 75 minutes. Current missile defense systems have essentially zero chance of intercepting it. These weapons represent Russia's attempt to leapfrog Western missile defense. Whether they can produce enough to matter remains questionable. Now we get to the real story. The reason those Cold War icons are obsolete. The reason modern warfare has fundamentally changed. Drones, not the big, expensive Predators and Reapers you're thinking of. Small, cheap, commercial off-the-shelf drones modified in basements and garages. Quadcopters that cost $500. FPV racing drones loaded with grenades. One-way kamikaze drones built in shopping malls. US Army analysis indicates that 60 to 80% of combat losses are now directly attributed to unmanned systems. They've removed the ability to mass forces near the front line. They've made traditional combined arms maneuver nearly impossible, and they're why Russia is resorting to horses and donkeys to move ammunition. Russia's most effective unmanned system isn't high-tech. It's the Orlan 10, a reconnaissance drone that looks like a hobbyist built it in his garage. Specs: 18-kilogram weight, 600-kilometer range, can fly for 10 hours at 5-kilometer altitude. Cost: about $150,000 for a complete system. Over 1,000 were produced by 2018. In July 2023, Russian officials announced production had surged 53 times since early 2022. By 2025, They're flying hundreds of missions per day. What makes it effective isn't sophistication, it's simple reliability. The Orlan-10 enables Russian artillery to deliver accurate fires within 3 minutes of identifying a Ukrainian position. Without it, that same fire mission takes 20 minutes. According to Ukrainian commanders, the Orlan-10 directed around 20,000 Russian artillery shells in 2022 alone, downing up to 100 soldiers per day. Here's the interesting part. Captured Orlans contain Western components, American and Swiss microchips, Irish electronics. Despite sanctions, the global supply chain makes it nearly impossible to completely cut off access to commercial technology. The Zala Lancet is a loitering munition, a drone that can fly to an area, orbit while scanning for targets, then dive bomb when the operator confirms a target. It's used in coordination with Orlans. The reconnaissance drone spots a Ukrainian artillery piece or air defense system. The Lancet, guided by data from the Orlan, strikes with a 3-kilogram shaped charge warhead. Ukrainian sources report Russians use approximately 200 Lancets per month. Production occurs in at least 5 repurposed shopping centers across Russia. That's right, they converted malls into drone factories, producing an estimated 65 to 94 per month. Cost effectiveness is stunning. A $100,000 Lancet destroys a $5 million self-propelled howitzer. A $50,000 variant takes out a $4 million air defense radar. The math works massively in favor of the attacker. Finally, the Geran-2, Russia's license-built Iranian Shahed-136 kamikaze drone. This is strategic warfare on a budget. Cost: $20,000 to $50,000 each. Russia built a massive factory in Alabuga specifically for Geran production. By June 2025, Ukrainian intelligence estimated Russia could produce 170 Gerans per day. That's 5,100 per month. These aren't precision weapons. They're slow, loud, and relatively easy to shoot down individually. But Russia launches them in waves of hundreds. In May 2025 alone, over 4,000 were launched. The newest variants have jet engines instead of propellers, making them faster and harder to intercept. They're hardened against electronic warfare with jammer-proof navigation. Some even carry cameras allowing operators to guide them manually. This is asymmetric warfare at its most brutal. Overwhelming expensive defenses with cheap, expendable mass. So what have we learned? First, iconic platforms matter less than you think. The Mi-24 Hind is being shot down by drones. The T-72 tank, once feared across Europe, can be destroyed by a teenager with a $500 quadcopter and an RPG warhead. Prestige projects like the T-14 Armata can't get past prototype stage, while the war is won with mass-produced mediocrity. Second, cost effectiveness is the new metric of power. A $50,000 Geran drone can destroy a $6 million Patriot missile. A $100,000 Lancet can take out a $20 million radar system. Traditional military procurement is being challenged by mass production of good enough disposable systems. Third, the battlefield has become transparent. Between commercial satellites, reconnaissance drones, and sensors everywhere, there's nowhere to hide. This makes massing forces for traditional offensives nearly suicidal. It's why Russia lost over 4,000 tanks. They tried 20th century tactics in a 21st century environment. Finally, production capacity may matter more than technological superiority. Russia is churning out thousands of cheap drones. They're losing equipment at catastrophic rates, but quantity has a quality all its own. Russia's most powerful military assets in 2026 are a study in contradictions. Their nuclear submarines are world-class. Their hypersonic missiles represent genuine technological achievement. But their vaunted ground forces are facing significant challenges in a war of attrition, propped up by Soviet-era stockpiles that are rapidly depleting: the T-14 Armata, the Su-57, the Naval Surface Fleet. These are propaganda more than power. What actually matters on the battlefield? The Orlan-10, the Lancet, the Geran kamikaze swarm, artillery that's been in service since the 1970s, guided by drones that cost less than a used Honda Civic. The future of warfare isn't about tanks and jets. It's about sensors, networks, precision fires, and above all, drones. Cheap, expendable, and everywhere. Welcome to the drone age. The age where a $500 quadcopter can down a $5 million tank. Where teenagers become artillery spotters. Where every soldier has to assume a camera is watching from above. The Cold War icons are done. Enter the Swarm Age. That's our deep dive into Russia's most powerful military assets. From the fallen giants of the Cold War to the drone swarms defining modern combat. If you enjoyed this, smash that like button, subscribe to Armored Geeks, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. What do you think? Are tanks obsolete or just poorly employed? Let us know in the comments below. This is Armored Geeks. We'll see you on the battlefield from a safe distance with a drone camera